The National Food Security Processing and Marketing Corporation is the government institution security marketing private trade. Corporation. Private blackness isn't this is into one so
Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good morning from Seattle. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you follow us from, wherever you watch us from. Welcome to the Dialectic Space podcast. Again, it's with me, Ibrahim Asanko. I am the host of this podcast that comes your way every week and sometimes over the weekends as well. And today, I have the honor of hosting Mr. Marr Nyang, the executive director and founder of Gambia Participate in the Gambia. Their work is not hidden, it's not new, it's not um, one that a lot of people are not familiar with. So Mar is trying to log on quickly, and then we'll get on with it here today. There's a lot of things happening in the country, especially in relation to the work that they do. So once Mar gets on here, we'll just crack on with it. Um, Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Yang. I think it's evening
It's
over there
evening
in your
here.
place.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Seems like the Seattle weather is treating you bad.
Dude, it's cold and wet. It's cold and wet. Good to see you, man.
It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to be back here after our previous conversation, which was really interesting. But good to be back here.
Yes, that conversation was interesting, and people still talk to me about that conversation, and I'm happy that after a while, we've been trying to really do this for a while. I'm happy that we're able to finally today have this conversation because I think, like I always tell you, there is so much important work that you're doing in Gambia with your team, together with a lot of other people as well. And it's important to sort of understand that and understand why you do what you do. But also, most importantly, I think people really need to be familiar with who Mar is, to sort of demystify the person from the job, because at the end of the day, that's also important. A lot of us, we do what we do because of the influences that we have from where we come from. For example, what our parents taught us, what values we have, why, in fact, Mar has become this anti corruption champion for not only in Gambia, but also for the African continent. So we'll just get right on it. And I think it'll be fair for me to begin with you telling us where you are in Nigeria right now and what's happening in Nigeria. But just for a start, for those of you who don't know, Mar is my guest again today. Mr. Mar Nyang is the founder and executive director of Gambia Participate in the Gambia, which is a civil society organization that does a lot of work in relation to, for accountability, public accountability, financial, government accountability and transparency, among a variety of research projects that they do in relation to public accountability and budget and finances. So he is a better person to talk to us about what he does. But I think currently he is in Nigeria. So I'll begin with him telling us where he is now and why he is there, because Mar seems to be he seems to be out of the country a lot, and I think it'll be interesting for people to know what's the essence of the travel and what he is doing in Nigeria right now. Welcome.
Thank you, Ibrahim, once again. So, to answer your first question, I'm actually here in Nigeria because I was invited by CGID um, on their Media and Development Conference 2025. So, I was on a panel, well, I was invited to speak actually on a panel um, on youth participation in elections and electoral integrity. As you know, one of our core intervention areas is election. And most of the time, to answer your second question, when I'm out, it's because of this kind of things. People that knows the work I do and follow the work I do invite me in this type of events to share not only the work that I'm doing in Gambia, because my work is not only limited in my country. So I work with different networks around the world, especially here in the African continent. So there's so many things that we talk about, not only what is happening in Gambia, but how do we reimagine democracy? How do we, open up our civic space? Because some of the things that we do experience in Gambia, it's not only unique to Gambia. It's unique to it's actually here in Nigeria. Young people are actually experiencing it. The democratic issues that we also complain about is very common in West Africa and the continent alike. So this conversation keeps going. Always we brainstorming, we finding ways, we also adapting, right? Politicians come up with a new system, so we also adapt. That's the work of the civil society, right? It's evolving every now and then because we are responding to new trends of democracy. We also responding to new trends of autocracy, but also what I call africocracy, right? Our system of, or our system of democracy. So it is a very complex animal, and we have to continue understanding the trend. Now, in fact, yesterday was an interesting conversation on artificial intelligence and governance, right? Um, so many issues that I think we have to be on top of it, and we cannot be on top of it without researching, without discussing it, and also without being into it.
I hope that like that sounds like really interesting to me. Sounds like very nuanced sort of dialogue to be involved in, and I hope you obviously make the best of it. You're a very, I mean, smart individual that I've known for a long time. But Mark, let's start from the beginning. In terms of where you come from, for example, in the Gambia, and what influences you to sort of venture into this line of work, because I've known you for a while, and you've always like been really into this. And I remember the first time I met you was through Bakari Fati, who is also the founder and executive director of Commission on Political Debates, which I'm part of as well, together with him. And so you've been extremely consistent, and I can confidently say that about you. I think a lot of people don't know; they just see you in Gambia Participate, and they think the story sort of begins here. I think there's a lot behind the story of Gambia Participate. So, talk to us briefly about who really is Marr. What sort of, I mean, what area of the country you come from? Also, like what sort of values have been instilled in you? So much so that it dawned on you, in fact, that you want to be involved in public accountability work or civil society work as you grow up to become who you are today.
You're the first person, I would guess, that put this question to me after almost a decade in this field. I was born and raised in Burfoot. Proudly, they call it Burfootarian. Uh, so I was raised in Burfoot. My grandfather, who is called Dr. Umar Henry Williams, he was a doctor. So, but he's originally from Banjul, but because of the nature of his work, he was, attached, or should I say, he was deployed to different parts of the country. So from Bansang, he went all. I mean, he was deployed to Burfoot, and the people of Burfoot at the time needed his service. If you ask anyone in Burfoot, Dr. Omar Henry Williams, they call him Pa Willie. You know how my name was, they will cut your surname from Williams to Williams.
Mhm.
So they appreciated him, they welcomed him, and they accommodated him in Burfoot. And long story short, he settled in there. Um, and my mom obviously traveled with him to Burfoot. And that's where I was born, raised. So I was raised in a typical Aku Wall of Mandinka family, if I can put it that way,
Mhm.
because my grandfather is Aku, and if you talk like any other tribe, Akus have high level of integrity. So that's one of the things that my grandfather actually instilled in me, and same with my mother. And most importantly, the hardworking part from my father's side. So we were groomed in that environment. Um, but at the same time, as well, being respectful. That's one of the things that we learn from our grandfather, and being content with whatever you have. I didn't grow up with a silver spoon,
Yeah.
right? My grandfather, mom, and father live a very humble life. So, irrespective of what you have, right, whether you have much or not, you have to be content with what you have, and you should not be envy of what others have. So, these are some of the values that were instilled in me from a tender age. Um, my civic work, actually, I don't know much about this civil society work. All that I knew at the time was what was wrong and what is right. um, Even in the midst of rebels or in the midst of danger, right? What my mom and grandfather, and obviously my father, taught us is you need to speak up for the truth, right? Um, and you're not going to have a good conscience if you see something bad, you just swallow it and then move on. I'm not saying you should stand up in order to get your life taken, but to just pull out that which is holding you inside, and speak for the ones who cannot speak for themselves, right? These are some of the things that we are taught. My first encounter was actually in 2012, from graduating at Gambia High School. I actually joined my auntie's husband for a work in Janjambure, in not Janjambure, in Jufre. I'm glad you're wearing that shirt. So we actually coming from Jufre. There was a labor work actually, because after graduating from high school, I didn't want to sit. I don't just want to fold my hand. I wanted to engage myself in something else. So my aunt's husband was engaged in CSE work, so I asked him to take me along. I was taken. Coming back, it was the ferry, and I will tell you why I'm so passionate about this ferry issue. So we were at the ferry, and there was an immigration officer who was actually extorting money from a Senegalese. Everyone was seated. No one was talking about it. I was quite very young. I was just in my 18, 19 years old. And I feel like this is not actually right. And the guy, intimidated, obviously, in a foreign country, he could not say or do anything. So I stood up and I said to the guy, look, what you were doing is not right. He showed you his particulars, all of his documented credentials. Why not just allow him to leave? And before I realized, when yen hale, if you graduate from high school, you think you know everything, or if you go to school, you think you know everything about rights. And this was during the era of Jammeh. Before I realized, I was handcuffed. I was taken to a cell. I was beaten. Obviously, I defended myself, and two immigration officers actually came, handcuffed me, actually tightened the handcuff in my hand, assaulted me, and they said they were going to take me to the cell. There was negotiation from the family that actually took me to my aunt's husband took me to Jufre, and that's how I was released. So it was from then that I said, I mean, this thing cannot continue, right? 2 years later, obviously, I started working for a law office, Faraj Andrews Law Practice, and I'm grateful for her. But most importantly, um, I was I was mentored by a wonderful woman called Biba Musa, a Lebanese Gambian. She also taught me issues of professionalism. She taught me issues of integrity, and working under her and in the law office. You have to work at the highest level of standard. You need to get results no matter what. If you do something that is crappy, you need to go back and redo it. That is how I was grown into this field. But how do I came to know about Bia Musa also? Many people know about the Mohammed Jagana and others. There is a man called Francis Dogolanjai. He passed away. He's the beloved son of Auntie Alaba, who was also a parliamentarian during the Jawar era. So when his son passed away, he established a foundation. So from high school, I was just called by this unknown voice that I was given a scholarship to the International Business College at the time. So it was a scholarship, and I was mentored. I mean, Biba was attached to me. I was trained until today. I'm serving now. I'm actually serving as a secretary to the board of Francis de Golanya Foundation, even though I'm not active. But
Oh.
it's a group of elders, professionals that are trying to ensure young people achieve excellence in the field of education. So that really also shaped who I am today. I think I would say I was fortunate that I didn't fall into wrong hands from my grandfather's style of life. My mom, the hardworking part obviously is my father. He works Monday to Sunday nonstop. Um, And Francis de Goronjai Foundation, the Faraj Andrews law practice also shaped me. That's how I also started building passion in the field of law, because part of my work was digitalization of law reports. If you know what law reports are, it's a combination of law reports from a certain period of time. So I was
Yeah.
digitalizing 2000 and 1997 to 2000 law reports. And while I was doing that, I was reading. I started building interest. I was also trained in organizing um, court files. So I get to so while organizing, I was reading. I'm not sure whether my boss would be happy to hear that, but I was reading. And um, in the judgments that I saw in those law reports were very interesting. Some are actually against the state, and the rulings sometimes are really baffling. And I, even being a lay person, I know sometimes certain things don't make sense. So it was just from there I started building passion about law, researching, and it was 2016 January actually that I started Gambia participate after taking election course online. At the time, my interest.
At that point, Mar, if you may just tell us, even before finding, we understand what shaped you, the values that has been instilled in you through the various exposes or exposures that you had through various people in your life. I think we must emphasize that at that level of your life, 16, 17, and I hope more people will take cognizance of this. It's absolutely important to surround yourself with people that will show you the way. Because at the end of the day, it's a huge determinant to what direction or what sort of human being you eventually become, right? But at what point do you realize, look, there is much more value? You felt ready to start something as meaningfully big as Gambia participate. What was at that point? What really happened? Even after taking that course or while you're taking that course, at what point did it occur to you that you want to start something like that in the Gambia?
Well, before I even have any idea about civil society work, let me just take us on a time machine and go back to post-secondary school, right? There was what we call NUGS, National Union of Gambian Students,
Yes.
which actually succeeded NAPSA. I once served as the vice president of NUGS. And that's how I got to know SG Silla, who's now a very good friend, and
Yeah.
others. So we were doing a lot of advocacy, going to schools, and then met with politicians and government officials. What I remember, we had a meeting with one individual, and I'm not going to mention the name. The meeting was so disappointing,
Mhm.
and we realized that even though we were very young, we didn't have much experience, but we know this is not how a public institution should be handled. So
Mhm.
we went out and we were whistling like these things happen in our public office. And the how will I put it? The person was not matured at the time, as in getting into national work. It was more a student activism. But when I started working with the law office, reading, understanding the bit and pieces of some of these judgments, the laws, understanding these basic terminologies and jargons, and reading a judgment. At the time, obviously, I have internet, understand what a judgment is, and when someone is sentenced, what it means. So all of these actually fuels you, right? Especially if you read something else that doesn't make sense to you, you feel like something else has to be done. So I started taking at the time. I think it was Yali. They had online courses, and I think people underestimate this, right? Just don't just take a course because you want to have a certificate and then you celebrate on social media that I have this certificate.
Yeah.
I took this course on elections to understand. It was elections and civic engagement. I was trying to understand how do you engage citizens on national issues. So I had the feeling I know what was wrong, and but then how do I mobilize? How do I organize? So from this course, when I took it, it started giving me steps. One of the things that I will never forget was mobilizing through social media. So in 2016, early, I think in January, I created a Facebook page called the Grassroots Organization, which has now changed to Gambia Participate, because at the time it was not Gambia Participate. It was called the Grassroots Organization. So I was doing, civic education, why people need to participate in elections, right? I did that for a couple of months before I understand what was happening. I received an invitation from the same Yali to be trained on election and digital tools in 2016 in Accra. So from that conversation, that's also where I met Hamza Lawal, a very good friend of mine now. So Hamza's session was also on civic mobilization, community organizing. And then we were like, how do we mobilize? How do we participate in governance? So that's what triggered the name Gambia Participate. And I was like, okay, it's about participation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
When I came back, I started Gambia Participate. It was just hashtag Gambia Participate, civic education. And there was a call for proposal after the TED camp in Ghana to transform your ideas into something. I don't know how to write proposal. I was very young. So I collaborated with, obviously, Fatu Ogwoche. Nigerians also contribute a lot to my career. And that's why I call this place my third home. So the grant was 2,930. It was 3,000, but because of the tax, I will never forget about that. So I started Gambia Participate with that money, as in actual activities. From that $2,000, I paid the air ticket of Fat Ogoche, her accommodation, mini election take, going to communities. Like, some of my colleagues were not in support of me spending all that money into just, why would I get someone else from outside when we can get the local expertise? But there was something that I was looking for. I was looking for an experience outside my country experience, right? And that helped. That saved. We still have those archives. It forced me to go out. That something is possible, right? So we started going to markets. Obviously, started with Burfoot. Then we went to Serakunda, and you name it. Organizing, mobilizing, educating people. And the two questions that we were putting to people was, there's either you not going to vote and you remain in the status quo, or you vote or you change the status quo. It was a combination of not only what we did. Ours was just 1% of the contribution or less what triggered the change. It was a combination of everyone, the diaspora, the media, and a lot of civic education was actually happening. I think that was the time that we needed it the most.
So at what point did the issue of corruption became central to your work? Because there perhaps has to be a moment where you also like, okay, cool, it's great to do good governance and accountability and community mobilization and grassroots governance, among other things. But I think at the center of it all is power. The state manages the resources, the taxpayers' money, and 9 times out of 10, they don't manage it properly. So at what point did that become part of your preoccupation or your life's journey? Because it's to me that you are absolutely committed to bringing to light the issues of physical transparency in the Gambia.
No, definitely. I mean, right after the elections in 2016, the change happened. So the question that I was asking myself, okay, there's a collective effort, there's a new government. How do we sustain the momentum? And election is seasonal, right? It happens once in every 5 years. It's a cycle that happens once in every 5 years. So when I met Hamzat in Ghana, he introduced Follow the Money to me. And I was curious about this Follow the Money, but at the time I was more interested on civic education. So right after that, I started continuing conversation with him, and the idea of extending Follow the Money to Gambia came up, and I told him, because why would I start something else new when it has already scored impact and in a bigger democracy like Nigeria? right? So that's how I collaborate, and it was the first time also we took Follow the Money initiative from Nigeria and then to Gambia, and other countries started following suit. So now it's called Follow the Money International. So we started tracking public expenditures, and I was trained on their model, how you track projects meant for communities, which ministry is actually responsible, how much was disbursed, even if the data is not available. So with the government, it was available on an open source platform online. It was called Deep Portal at the time. So we were able to know exactly how much was disbursed, where those were supposed to be benefiting from these projects. And we started tracking. And we would get the contract, everything that we need at a time. We would get it online, and they would support me in that. So I started building interest in the issue of data and also using that data for public accountability, because uh, you cannot do anti-corruption work with speculations. You cannot do accountability work that is motivated by anger or your personal sentiments. You have to base it on data and facts. So you do the legwork, get the data, decipher that data, make sense out of it, and from you analyzing the data, you will know what is not right and what is right. So what is not right, you use that to actually confront the government. At the time, it was confrontational. I was doing pure confrontational. I do receive threat at a time because obviously we name and shame. I was young, we name and shame, and that's exactly what we used to do. And until I believe somewhere around 2018, 19, I started changing my style. And I think this is a very important platform for me to also talk about how my transition also happened. Like I said, uh, I work a lot with Nigerians. So Yaga Africa, which you might know, and they're big on election work. Something is also a very good friend who is the founder. When he came to Gambia and assessing the post-election, the work of civil society in and the citizens, the media, in changing the the autocratic government to a democratic one, started engaging, and he told me, I think it will be a very good idea for a program that we have in Nigeria. I think you should apply. It came out and applied, and then at a professional level, from online to in person, you get to know what organizing actually is. How do you actually do your messaging? Basically, advocacy work. For me, every single training that I attend, every single conference that I attend, there must be a takeaway that is going to add value in my work or me personally. I cannot go empty-handed, even though I might not be able to participate 100%. But there must be something else that I will say this was worth my time. This was worth my struggle, knowing West Africa, where flights are like gele gele, moving from one country to another, right? With all those struggles, there must be something else that I must come back home with and benefit me or my organization. So these are some of the things that actually keep shaping me individually, um, and also the work we do at Gambia Party. But most importantly as well, we like to innovate, right? There are things that we started doing at Gambia Party that was not done in other countries. Like, for example, the marble election app that we developed. In this continent, I believe there's only one country that actually have that, right? So we were interested in data. We're interested in using technology, using innovation to add solutions to our existing problem. And what actually even gave birth to Marble was also based on personal experience. We 2016, everyone was having their notepad and pen when Elijah Momoranjai announced the results. We all struggle, what is the figures, because it was verbal, right? And sometimes, like most of you miss the figures. So you speculate, and people are giving different conflicting figures. So I said there could be a solution to this. So that's how we actually came up with the Marble app, and obviously, Asutet, the local company that we work with, also did an amazing job in turning that concept to reality.
So far since your founding and your evolution in terms of where you start and where your interest is growing into, what have been some of the biggest impact that you would say Gambia participate have scored in the Gambian civil society work or in the Gambian political space? One, but two, also, what are some of the most pressing challenges that you continue to face in your line of work?
That's a very good question. So we're going to be 10 years next year. There's a lot of things that we have done, but I would pick up some of the things that I believe personally. I actually um, see myself in that result. Um, the first thing was when we did the follow the money. We identified a community who was supposed to benefit from. I think it was a cash transfer based on your performance of sanitation and wellness. Through that research that we did, we identified that community. We went there, we listened to their voices, and then obviously it was confrontational at the time, like I said, and it was Nana actually reached out. We had a meeting, back and forth, but then we had an understanding. And that community, when a couple of months or years later, or so a couple of months, we started hearing updates from the community that things have been progressing. It was a community clinic that we were supposed to have, and it was progressing very, very, very well at the time. That was a minor impact to start with. And the other thing was during the TRRC work, and I think most of the people don't also know how the people of Nigal, right, the Kermodhali people came to the TRRC. That was as a product of the work of Gambia Participates, right? We were trying to connect the nexus, right, or to find a nexus between human rights violation and corruption, right? TRRC mandate was to look at human rights violations. So what we did was we introduced through obviously an expert what is called PV, participatory video. So we brought we obviously went through victim center and asked about those that have reported their case, those that fall within the TRRC mandate, and those that do not. So we brought these people from Kermot Ali, and then also the committee of Sare Bojo chairman together, and also pensioners. Remember, from the OCCRP report, so a good amount of money, millions of dollars, was actually pilfered. I believe it should be about 100 million or about 300 million was actually personalized from the pensioners fund. So we brought them together, trained them to craft and help them craft their message, also to tell their own stories, not us telling their stories, right? So all that we trained them was, how do you craft your message? You have all of this experience, like so many things to talk about, but how do you direct the most important thing to your audience and stakeholders? So the people of Kerbot Ali, when they narrated their story, we believe this will go to the TRRC. I remember it was Alaji Baro, who was the principal investigator at the time at TRRC. I went there with a colleague from Transparency International in Berlin that was here with us. We presented this, and I cannot forget some of the words he kept repeating, that this is invaluable, this is invaluable, this is invaluable. All of a sudden, we received a call from the people of Kermot Ali that they have been invited by the TRRC
Wow.
to testify. And in their testimony, actually, you will see Council SFL actually use the video as one of the evidences in their proceedings. This, we stayed back. What we wanted was the result. And the TRC made a recommendation for those people to get back their land, irrespective of their religious belief. I don't believe what they believe. I don't practice what they practice. But in our religion, we also we don't have to discriminate others because they are not practicing what we are practicing. That's not even what Islam actually taught us, even though we disagree with them obviously on religious principles. So that for me was a very big achievement. And obviously, and our anti-corruption law advocacy from when it was tabled in 2019, we started engaging parliamentarians, had a huge setbacks because most of those parliamentarians that we engaged were voted out. A new a new parliament was ushered in, new ones, and then the previous ones started, uh, continuing the conversation, engage the Ministry of Justice. They were also accommodated. And there's one thing that I wanted to share in this work. When the anti-corruption bill was tabled in Parliament, right, in November or December 2019, February, we convite parliamentarians to review the bill and make recommendations. And some of the positions that we made, some were paying heed to it, some were not. But if you look at the pace at which the anti-corruption law or anti-corruption bill was being reviewed, between 2019 to 2023 June, there was only 21 out of 88 clauses that were discussed. So in about 4 years, 21 clauses were discussed. So it was moving at a very slow pace. So in June, what we did, we brought the parliamentarians. We did closed door conversation. We didn't allow media to feature the conversation because we wanted honest conversation. We wanted parliamentarians to also bring up their reservations. And we brought 3 drafters from the Ministry of Justice to guide and also clarify some of the misconceptions that they have. When we did that in June, we were able to review 39 clauses in 8 hours, as opposed to 21 clauses that were reviewed in 4 years.
Wow.
Right after that, even though that was external, it's not parliamentary proceedings, external, but right after that event, by September, the anti-corruption bill was already ready. So June, July, August, September, it was ready for passage until we made an intervention, obviously, with Flex Dan to make advocacy and lobby parliamentarians to raise certain issue. And Alaji S. Dabo, the man who really actually did that, and the speaker said, okay, because we don't have much time, we have to push this until December. So they pushed it to December. December, the anti-corruption bill was enacted. It was passed by parliament. So we really take pride, and we appreciate even the Ministry of Justice acknowledging it on their Twitter, the work that we have done on this. And it was just not only the parliamentary work, we did a lot of noise, bring it interest, because what you do when you're doing advocacy, you do your policy advocacy, but don't forget about the mass mobilization, right? So the mass mobilization weight to your national policy advocacy. So we work with several communities and also influencers, making videos, calling government to enact this. And it's enacted. Several things I can talk about: budget, how we increase or help increase budget transparency. When we started assessing the Gambia under the International Budget Partnership Open Budget Survey, 2019 government budget transparency was 4 out of 100. I remember presenting this to Bai Madisise, who was the budget director at the budget directorate, and he was very angry with the findings. And I was like, well, I am not also happy that the country is being perceived this way in the international space, but this is the realities. Documents are not being published, so we have to publish them. So we started collaborating. So I would say, Bai Mai started understanding these issues, and he said, like, we have this document here, but the importance of publication was not known until the OBS was released. And it was the first time Gambia was assessed in the OBS. Mind you, from 4 out of 100 in 2019, and this is biannual. In 2021, we assessed Gambia, that scored 34.
That's significant.
35 out of 100. So 31 points leap. Right, and this is also because what we've been doing, not our credit, but obviously the Ministry of Finance at the time had the interest putting it out. Until today, we're working with them in simplifying budget. So there's so many things that I can sit here talk until tomorrow that I'm proud of, but I tell some of the highlights.
What are some of, like, let's say, in 2 or 3 biggest challenges so far since you've started, either from at state level or even community level, and furtherance of your goals and objective as a civil society?
The work of civil society comes with a lot of challenges. one of our lowest moments, Ibrahim, was when we took the government to court. The 54.4 million loan scheme. Remember when we told Parliament that you cannot take this loan, and we took it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in our favor that Parliament cannot actually use this money. It actually severed it broke the relationship that we have with government. And I've been criticized in my style of advocacy, and that's also because look, I am my way of advocacy is different, right? I am a more result-oriented advocate, right?
Mm-hmm.
How we gonna go the result is going to be either confrontational or diplomatic, but I choose the diplomatic route, right? Which I think has been yielding results. But that doesn't mean that when we use that avenue and government is not responding, they are not showing will, we will have to use the other alternative. And that was the reason why we took Parliament to court. When we also took the IEC to court, you know, when I started my election work, Nyang, the CEO, will still joke about it. Said, "You used to come here as a young boy, you know," and they were very accommodating. Everything that I needed, they will tell me, give me information. We started working, but we have to create the distinction between the personal relationship and then the institutional relationship. So it was not the individuals that we were angry with; it was the process that the institution had taken. So we took that matter also to court. That was our low moment, and we were not being supported from even the space that we work within. Obviously, I don't know for many reasons why, but there are two people, or should I say, two people that actually stood out, and were there whatever was happening and whatever we're going through. And these are two silent personalities that we do see sometimes, but we don't also get to know the work that on the ground work that they are doing. And this is Council Salim Tal and John Charles Njai. I was stressed because we are doing our work. We are not obviously expecting support, but the opposition that we received, obviously from the parties that we took to court, because it was both government and the opposition, right? I remember the IEC was one of the defendants. The mayoress of Banjul was one of the defendants, obviously from the UDP, and then also we have the Attorney General as one of the defendants. So two parties, obviously, all against us: the main opposition and obviously the government. For me, it doesn't matter. What matters is we need to follow the law. Like I said from the beginning, I started building interest in these legal issues, right? We have to follow what government is doing and put government into the right place. It's not something that is antagonistic. It's not something that we're doing out of acrimony or what have you. It's because governance is about partnership. The one sometimes who is outside sees more than what you are seeing. Let's say, for example, today at Gambia, there are things that I might be doing. When my staff comes and said, no, it should be this way, or someone has come from outside and said, no, it should be this way, I have to sit back and say, oh yeah, you're right. Right? So at the state level, that is what we do as civil society. Most of the things that we took to court are constitutional issues, are issues of separation of powers or the rule of law. Because the issue with Parliament was the issue of separation of powers. There is a distinction and clearly defined group and responsibility what a Parliament can do in terms of the budget and what the minister can do. The same thing with the attestation case. It's a rule of law case because it's already clearly defined in the laws what must be done. So if you go beyond that, it defeats the principle of rule of law. And this is what we are trying to help.
On that point too, before you even proceed, Marr, would you also say, for example, like part of the negative public responses in terms of your work or the outcome of your work, especially when it comes to politicians, and you know them, if you make a publication that is to their interest or aligns with them, they support you. If you make critical findings about things that they do not align with, then you become the public enemy number one. And we've seen you do this in respect to the draft constitution that Gambia was trying to put in place. And when you said, when in fact you made a finding that to say, hey, look, we can do this, people everywhere in the Gambia, at least from a large number of the community, were like, no, these people are not, they don't know what they're saying. So there's a lot of negative feedback. Does that affect in any way, shape, or form either you personally or the work of Gambia participate?
Initially, it used to, because in my early days of work, I am sometimes pa- passionately driven
Mhm.
in what I do, and some of these negative comments and people calling you names at the time, it do affects you, right? You say you have to have thick skin, but obviously you see certain things, it affects you. So in the beginning, it does, it does, but later as I become more mature in the space, I am no more driven by motivation. I am driven by standards,
Mhm.
right? My work is influenced by standards. We put standards, and then we work towards achieving the standard. So whatever people say, right, it's a distraction from you achieving that standard. But if it is driven by motivation, right, and motivation could be both positive and negative, those distractions can actually pull you down. So that's why we go all the way to the end. We sit, reflect before we go out. Obviously, it took us a lot of time to do our internal work and see which road do we take, right? For example, the 1997 constitution vis-a-vis the 2020 draft. We supported the 2020 draft, and everyone was happy with that. 2024 draft also came. We supported 2024 draft with amendments,
Yes.
but everyone disliked that. So we like, this is expected, because many people were driven by passion, motivation, and also attachment. You know, we had a lot of things. We called hypocrites. We even called that we are paid by government to do so. It's all the stupid stuff coming from people. So, but then one thing that helps us is when we put up a standard, we work towards that, we bring solutions. If you tell me no, we should not do this, tell me why we should not do it. And we are giving you a set of data, right, that could be used. And this is the beauty of being in the middle, because I'm not part of the opposition, I'm not part of the government
Mhm.
while I was doing this work. So what we were looking at was the stake. Do we prefer continue with the 997 constitution and having the mid the people store, have millions of dollars is being spent, and that was not actually in the 2024 draft? Should we continue having an electoral system in which it is simple, first past the post, simple majority? Is that democratic? We continue should we continue be governed with a constitution where there is no term limits? So we suddenly said, look, with all of the downsides, with all of the low lights of the 2024 draft, right? It actually addressed these issues. But then if we have these recommendations, these proposed amendments actually worked in part, I mean, if the parliamentarians work in partnership, irrespective of their party affiliation, to look at the national interest, then we will not be talking about the middle people stuff. We will not talk about issues of term limits. We will not talk about issues of weakened democratic institutions. But no, we said no, and now we're going back complaining about the same middle people. So that is a constitutionally legally mandated, even though the purpose is defeated sometimes,
It is.
but it's a constitution.
Yeah.
And it is always said the law must not be seen to be non-existent. It is existing in the constitution, whether it makes sense or not. It has to be implemented.
Mhm.
So these were the issues that we were trying to address, and obviously a lot of negativity was coming to us. But I keep telling my staff, you stay focused, right? And I control also what I see on
Mhm.
social media. I hardly respond to issues. Because most of the people that make these statements are obviously they have interest. They are
Yeah.
tied to something else. There's something that they're looking for. And I will tell you, there was a time that we engaged a community engagement. When I explain this whole constitution, make comparison between the 1997 and 2020 and 2024. Someone told me, I really don't know that this actually exists in the 2024 draft constitution. For me, I start on social media, someone is writing very, very negative stuff about, not even negative, but reality of one part of the draft. And I say, how bad could this be? How evil are these people? This is the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to read, we need to research, so that our interactions will be influenced by knowledge, not by sentiments or what have you.
So before I jump quickly into your recent findings in respect to government spending patterns from to 2020 to 2025, just one last issue on this subject is that is you recently also are getting a lot into opinion polls. I think what we're saying is you're not the very person conducting these surveys, but you're contracting third parties to conduct this on your behalf, which is common in a lot of civil society and non-profit work. You bring specialized skills or specialized group of people to conduct certain assignments or surveys on particular areas for you, and you've done this recently in terms of the political actors in the Gambia as we get into 2026 presidential election. What was the motivation? Why did you also veer into this area? If that's not the force, have you been involved in opinion polls? And are we going to expect to see more of that from Gambia participate?
uh, just like I explained in our previous conversation when we had this debate, we do a lot of data collection. We are very interested in public data to shape our work, to also advocate for policies. So what we used to do before, we do what we call social audits. We do conduct research and audit services like electricity, access to electricity, affordability of water, how potable that water is, and what people are paying against what they're receiving, which is supply and not the supply and demand side. But this is like, for example, I am receiving 12 hours water supply, but I'm paying more than what someone else who's receiving 24-hour water supply. So we do this, bring partners, bring NAWEC, and we understand what the issues are. Maybe someone else who was receiving 12 hours has a leakage and they don't know, or they open the tap. Sometimes the tap have an issue, they will just tie it with a knot. So some of these issues, to understand what is issue, but we have to bring data. So we did social audits. We actually even did social audits on the ferries. We did social audit on the Banjul Rehabilitation Project. And this project, this research, we contracted research organization like CRPD and CEPROS, right? Because the work of civil society has to be partnership. You cannot be a jack of all trades. And I think it weakens most of our organization. They will say, why must we give this money to someone when we can do it by ourselves? But it's not your expertise, right? CEPROS, CRPD, and other organizations that we work with, this is their expertise. We do have data experts actually at Gambia participate, but we prefer giving it to an external entity whose expertise and focus is on research and they understand these issues. And we have to commend them. I mean, this is our local institutions that are doing wonderful work. And that's my interest. How do we collaborate with our local partners in increasing efficiency in what we are doing? Because it has to be collaborative. So we in fact did a research on how electricity outage could be linked to maternal mortality. You understand? So we are interested in data. If you go on our website, you will see so many things that we put out. So now this opinion poll, right? We normally have opinion polls before elections for a couple of months leading to elections. So when this discussion was happening, right, we sat at the office and we're like, and this is one of the good things about us. We don't only sit at the office, work 8 to 4. There's a particular hour that we sit in the office and we just be chatting. And this chat will be discussing ideas, talk about fully stuff, good stuff, refresh, until something innovative comes out of the conversation, and then we start working on it. That's one of the beautiful thing about the work we do at Gambia Participate, right? So many things that actually bones out of this conversation that we have with our amazing staff. And by the way, I don't only have like and I think that's what people don't understand. I don't just have ordinary staff. I have experts that knows what they're doing more than what I know. You understand? We have different
We had
disciplines.
Diba here last week. He was talking to us about it, that he was working
Exactly.
with you.
Yeah. He Debo also used to work with us, and I'm glad that he's also doing budget work. So we have experts, and I think that's what shaped the standards and actually influenced the standard of our work product. So when we started at the office, we had this discussion. Everyone was saying, Barrow should not run, or Dabo is aging, he should not run. Talib should be the substitute for Barrow. Others are saying, no, it should be Young or Himari. So, okay, is there any data that can actually prove to us what the sentiments of the citizens are? So this was not even an idea. It was born out of this conversation because of what was trending. So we would discuss what is trending in the country and then see how we fit into it. So when it actually popped up, we said, okay, we have an opportunity to actually put it into something else. And that's how we contacted Cyprus. And Cyprus came and said, well, this is interesting. We can do it. And we work with our observers that we work with on election observation, and they came volunteer. They were also happy, and they came on board. We trained them and deployed them. And when we knew the outcome was going to be controversial. People are going to talk about, as in controversial, as in people are not going to like it, right? Because if the data comes out, we will receive pushback. So when we did that, I said, okay, we need scientific data to understand the sentiments of the citizens. We did the research came out. And when it came out, and we did the analysis with Cyprus and did everything, we started our obvious social media dissemination strategy. What we expected, that's what actually transpired. But most importantly, we would allow the data to speak for itself. It was not for us to tell people what they want to hear or what they don't want to hear. And I think most advocates, this is the mistake that they make. And most media personalities, this is the mistake that they make. They want to place a certain demographic because something else is trending. And if they talk about that issues that please the sentiments and emotions of that set demography, right? They will receive applause, likes, and followerships, and they will trend. So you can either choose that path or to choose the difficult path where you speak about things, people who are going to talk about it, but when they go sit and reflect, say, okay, I think this is authentic. So we choose the hard path, right? Which is do the legwork, let the data speak for itself, and all the discussion happened. People obviously shared their feedback and some of the reservations, and the data obviously was authentic, but some of the feedback that we received, they are positive, and then we started taking those into consideration. However, 2 months down the line, we published the GCI, which is the Gambia Corruption Index. Now, the ones that we are talking about, the pools, did not talk about the corruption part, which is the most important and delicate side of this thing that we are doing. We had less coverage, and we also discussed with the Gambia President. I told them this is not going to receive much coverage. And sorry, attention. It actually received coverage, but not much attention. It was just few people that were interested in data. We actually built a whole data platform where you can interact with this. But the data was out. It actually reached where we wanted it to reach, but the coverage or the attention that the pools got, the GCI did not receive that. And this was the first time we wanted to also look at citizens' sentiment on corruption. We need to establish and create our local data. This is absent in our country, right? There are certain things that we talk about, they are not based on data. They are based on assumptions. They are based on, I believe, I think, but no scientific data. So we are bringing up data. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the work we do at Gambia. We are we are hungry for data. We are hungry to know what is happening, what is shaping, how is the country moving, how is the trend of the budget going to affect the economy, the debt. We need to be doing, and that's why, in fact, we developed what we call the National Budget Platform. We have a whole database where you can just interact with the budget free of charge from 2020 to 2024, and then we will put in the 2020 all the way to 2025. 2026 will be also uploaded. So these are very expensive tools, but we put it out there for free, people to use, right? If we are building, let's say, for example, artificial intelligence, and I was having this conversation somewhere else, the what gives birth to artificial intelligence is the existence of data.
Mhm.
Western countries where you are have data, and they can use that to train AI models to help make life easier for us.
Mhm.
In our country, we don't have that. Let's say, for example, today, if you want to develop an AI model in the health industry to predict how cancer, um, present itself, early detection, we need to find, let's say, for example, different experiences, individual experiences, the stages, and put that in an AI model, right? Just like what whoever is using these female, most of them is women, they're using these pregnancy apps and flu and menstrual apps. They are all with data from themselves that are used to inform them when your menstrual period is going to be, when are you expected to have a baby. How about our local health infrastructure? How can we collect data, and also in our governance infrastructure? How can we collect data and then put it out there to make life easy for us, and then also to help us make predictive decisions that are based on facts and data? But without we just assuming. I saw a question, also like say a headline on the newspaper when the vice president was asked about the 150,000 jobs that the government said they're going to create by 2027, which is on the pillar 3 of the national development plan. There's no data.
Mhm.
So we just make up these good policies or fantasies, if I can put it that way. But you cannot actually measure this impact because the data doesn't exist. How many jobs through government policies enabled private sector? Because it's not only government, both private sector and then also the public sector. How did government policies enable job creation? And if it's through that process, you collect that data and then report it. Now you can go back to private. This is the data. So this is the issue that we face.
So, what would you say are some of the most worrying concerns in terms of government spending habits between the period you just reviewed, 2020 to 2025? What are some of the worrying trends? What are the spending habits? I saw a very scary figure of the amount of money spent on vehicles, for example, by the Gambia government between 2020 to 2025. Although I must highlight, this is also the period that they bought vehicles for the OIC summit. Even that is still inexcusable in respect to the amount of money that they spend on vehicles. And I do also would add that I think it's ridiculous for government to justify keeping all of these vehicles, all of these utility vehicles for the government. And I listened to the government information minister with Peter Gomez on Coffee Time, basically saying, "Oh, we need to operationalize the government. We need these vehicles to run the government." And it just dawned on me that a serious government. We've seen Western governments. We've seen countries around the world that don't have to do this, that didn't invest millions of dollars in vehicles. But I'm not going to belabor on that point. But just talk to us a little bit about what are some of the most worrying concerns in terms of your findings for the government spending habits.
Well, it's actually the issue of vehicle expenditure, and this is not only related to purchasing of new vehicles. This includes the maintenance of these vehicles. it includes the fuel coupons. Um, so my organization, if I'm given a fuel coupon, it's for my office errands. If I exhaust it, anything that I put on in my fuel tank is from my own personal cost. The office will estimate how much it will cost for me to run office errands from day one of the month to the last day of the month. So anything else is on you, right? Maintenance. If we have a policy, if you have a natural, car fault, the office can solve that. But if it's out of negligence, right, that's from your own personal cost. So you know how to take care of what is being given to you, and the same thing applies to all of my staff that are actually given that privilege. Now, with the government, whether it is negligent, you cannot ascertain whether it's negligent or natural, right? Natural cause of accident. You can't ascertain. And sometimes what happens, someone else is given a vehicle because there's no stringent vehicle policies. I'm not saying they are not good, but stringent ones that are implemented, that are enforced to the maximum. When so whoever messed up public asset, including these vehicles, right, you will have penalty on your shoulders. And you look at the fuel allocation part of it. Someone was telling me it is only government where you see someone else having excess fuel and fuel coupon, and they use that excess to sell it or give it to their colleagues as gift. It's not something else that our taxpayers can afford. We want our public officials to live a dignified life, comfortable life, so that they can also serve the citizens to live a dignified and comfortable life. That's the whole purpose of these motivations, these remunerations, to make life easier, to make work and your work execution easier for you, but not to exploit it.
So how much
So
money within that period are they spending on vehicles and new vehicles, new maintenance, on fuel? Just the idea, I think it's important for us to highlight that, because it's just insane. When I saw it, I was just blown away. Right, the excuse to spend that much money in just vehicle maintenance for the period of 5 years is astronomical. So talk to us briefly about the number.
So if we exhaust this 876 million that has been proposed for 2026 and spend that same actual of 1.2 billion that is allocated for vehicle maintenance, fuel and lubricants, from 2020 to 26, we will have expended $5.3 billion on vehicles alone. 5.3 billion in purchasing new vehicles. COVID-19, you see a vehicle with the number plate COVID-19. Sweat, I saw over 20 luxurious vehicles on Sweat. So good chunk of the amount that's supposed to go to the real impact has already gone to transportation, right? You look at 2026 having $428 million, not to buy new cars, but to just fuel these cars. Just to fuel the cars is costing us, and the oils, 428 million. How can Gambians shoulder that? How can we afford that? And if the theme of the budget is to improve the life and livelihoods of Gambians, this is contradicting that. This is improving the life and livelihood of public officials. So, go ahead.
What other areas besides vehicle? Because obviously they're not going to change that habit, and the budget estimate for 2026 is before the National Assembly. Do you anticipate whatever they have in terms of the amount of money that government intends to spend on operationalizing? Do you expect that to change? Do you expect the National Assembly to say, "Hey, we're doing too much. Let's limit the amount of money that we're using on operationalizing the government and put money on elsewhere"? Do you anticipate anything like that?
Well, when we send our recommendation for the middle people store budget to be reduced from 52.5 million to 35 million, uh, somehow that recommendation was implemented, but they only removed 2.5 million, which I think is still very small for the middle people store. It is a non-essential spending. It is it is a political campaign financing, if I can put it that way. The objective of that particular law, right, was for the government to understand what citizens, especially the farmers, are going through, what the effects of their policies are on those farmers, so that when you are giving recommendations or you understand what is happening, you use that data. That's also data collection. Because you're going out talking to people, understanding what they're going through, you collect the data, document it. You were supposed to document and then report to us that these are some of the key highlights that we actually, or the key outcomes from the middle people. So this is what we are going to do in the subsequent fiscal year to address these issues. Is the issues of groundnuts? Is it the issue of creating local markets so that there's going to be circular economy where we produce, process, and consume, right? Is it the issue of employment? These are the issues that we need to, the government should have documented and say this is the outcome, but not a platform to say remove this particular individual. I will do this. Vote for me. That is illegal because now it's giving you an unfair advantage to the opposition, because the objective of this law is not to give you money for you to do your political campaign. It's far from it. And when we documented, we wrote a report, and I think it was posted on Gambia Participate page 2 years ago. Most of the time during election period, the middle people store, they delay a month or two before the election day, whether it's presidential, whether it's parliamentary. In fact, in 2023, the middle people store conflicted with the parliamentary elections campaign. They were doing the middle people store while parliamentary campaign was also happening. So we use our state money, and you use that money to campaign for citizens. That is the reason why in 2023, when $10 million was approved for the middle people store, they end up spending $61 million. $61 million was what they spent. Over 50, about $50 million is overspent. Most of it was campaigning for political representative, and it paid off. They end up getting the majority in parliament. So this is why we need to rethink these issues, and like I said, why we need to be looking at data, understand these issues. You understand? And I also call it a fiscal tactic.
Yeah.
And I think our parliamentarians need to wake up to this reality. Don't just look at the number that is brought before you. Or 2026, this is what is happening, and we approve. Go back all the way to previous years. We've been giving you this amount of money, but you've been overspending these issues. Like the average here is about 20 million or 25 million overspending. The average. We give you 6 million in 2020, you overspending by 32 million. We gave you 6 million, the same 6 million. So you look at this. 2020, they approved 6 million. 2021, they approved 6 million. 2022, they approved 6 million. Consistent, but so inconsistent with the expenditures. So this is where we always do this analysis, bring out the data so people know what is happening. And I think Parliament should not politicize this. Yes, it's a political mandate. Or no, it is a constitutional mandate. I will take that back. It is a constitutional mandate for the president to meet the people's talk, to conduct the meet the people's talk. But look at how interesting our politicians could be. So that part of the constitution, they are fully implementing that. But now let's look at the issue of asset recovery. All of those ministers, or should I say asset declaration, all of those ministers that have been going to this middle people, so justifying that it's a constitutional mandate, ask them when was the last time they declared their asset of the ombudsman. And this is also a constitutional mandate. So we cannot pick and choose what favor us. So the asset declaration, great transparency, and will track your expenditures. But the middle people store is the people's money, to help with the people's money, so they can do their campaign the way they want it. Now, this is what is not sustainable. This is something else that can form, or that we can leverage on our limited resources. I was looking at Liberia, their revenue their revenue estimate for 2026 is hitting $1 billion. We are somewhere around 600 to 800 million revenue collection. But our expenditure is always going up. You talk to these politicians, they say, "Oh no, we have what we call a balanced budget," where they will justify that, okay, our expenditure is matching with that of our revenue collection, but it's incorrect. It's incorrect because when we were developing the budget dashboard, we realized that what they do, you will see on the loan drawn down. So these are loans that they're taking from domestic and external partners. So they will report that as revenue in 2026, for example. Or let me just go back. In 2024, they recorded 7.1 billion as expected revenue on the loan drawn down. But if you look at the 2026 executive budget proposal, they reported it as zero actuals.
Yeah.
So that is not a balanced budget. Whether they're moving that into, it's not something that can be between expenditure and revenue. It is reported on the revenue. It has to be reported on the actual revenue realized on the loan drawn down. So you cannot call that a balanced budget. So and that was the reason why when I was interviewed once for the people by the people, so I said, I cannot tell you right now whether this is a balanced budget or not until I see the actuals. So there are so many non-essential spending. We talk about the people store, we talk about the vehicles, we talk about travel between 2020 and if the 2025 allocation and 2026 allocation are expended, we will be spending 3.1 billion public money on travels.
3.1 billion. Are you saying million or billion Gambian dollars?
$billion, the B with the capital B.
That's insane, man. Between this period,
2020,
yes, between 2020 to say extend it to 2026, if all of that resources or funds have been expended, Gambia would be spending 3.1 billion Gambian dollars on governmental travels alone. This is astronomical. This is insane.
That is the case. And is it an essential expenditure? Most of it are not. Let's take the UNGA, for example. Why do I have to pay for 25 people to go for UNGA? Number one, that is a problem. Number two, our per diem policy is a very bad policy because the US, where you're from, they have created a list of countries that is based on the data that I'm still talking about, based on the cost of living of that particular city, right? So, for example, if I'm taken by the US government in different parts of the US, the DSA that I'm given in California is going to be different from the DSA that I will be given in Louisiana because the cost of living in California is higher than Louisiana.
Yes.
So they use that data to influence policies. But for us, we just give, is it 300 pounds wherever you go in foreign countries as your per diem? Or it doesn't make sense. If I'm going here to Nigeria, why do I need 300 pounds for per diem?
Or Senegal.
Or Senegal. Yeah. Or Guinea-Bissau. Why do I need that? So what government has to do is to look at different countries, and peg it with the US policy as a baseline. But obviously the risks are going to be different because our economies are also not the same. Yeah. You look at the different countries, work with your local embassies in different countries. What are the use of these embassies? Let them collect data and then give it to the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Foreign Affairs can start working towards a sound and reasonable per diem policy. So at the end of the day, whoever is traveling, you will know if you're going to Senegal and you're only receiving $50 per night, then you will know what is there, not the money. And we have received reports where government officials travel for conferences, stay with friends, use that money, no transparency in the reporting or retirement of this money. So that's also what is skyrocketing these travel expenses.
Mar, one more issue on the issue of government spending patterns. Procurement, huge area that everybody know, not only in Gambia but most really poor countries. The state uses it as an opportunity to basically individuals, I mean, enrich themselves through the process. The procurement policies are unclear. Even if they are clear, they just have loopholes where officials are able to just via money in other means to sort of put the money away from the areas that the monies are supposed to go to. What is happening in the Gambia in respect to procurement? What are the sort of the numbers looking like as well in terms of currently, but also going to 2026, and what, if any, reform should happen in that respect to ensure that resources are being put in the right places?
Well, the procurement is a very ugly animal, if I can put it that way, that attracts a lot of benefits to businesses and institutions that enable those businesses to be awarded those contracts. I give you an example. A couple of years ago, and I was doing RFQ. So I obviously we do our own. Our staff will do the quotation collection, but I was also curious to go out and then do quotation collection. And I went to a stationery, and the person told me, "How many percent do you want?" I said, "What do you mean percent?" I said, "Oh no, we have people that comes here and they'll tell us put this here, and then after they get we get the money, we pay them." I said, "No, this is for my office." So I didn't realize at the time. So when I went back home and started reflecting on this, so I said, "Okay, so this is actually how it works." Meaning prices could be inflated, prices of goods could be inflated through the procurement officer working with the supplier, right? And they come up with a figure. So let's say, for example, it is a tender to, let's say, manufacture mobile phones. The specifications of that mobile phone is explicitly stated in the procurement document. Maybe one element is actually taken out of it, or maybe one element is made to be vague so that others will not understand. But the one that is inside the process, use that information, connive with one of the tenders and tell them, bring a prototype that has to be exactly like this, and I can help you to bring it so that you can win. But this is my percentage. I've had colleagues that always keep businesses that keep telling me, Marr, you need to start fighting about this 10% or 11% percentage from procurement. When I ask, what does that mean? He said, anytime you are given government contracts, most of the time, they will ask for, not the government as an institution, but the individuals, they will ask for 10% commission, which has now become a norm. And I was like, but why don't you guys talk about this? Because you enable it. They ask for you, you got a contract, you ask for it, and you're giving them the money. And they told me, if we don't give it to them, our business will survive. Yeah. Right? So you will see that if I am buying this charger for $50, it will probably cost the government $300 to buy the charger. Why?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what is happening with our vehicle procurement. And the numbers that I'm seeing are really not looking good for the procurement of those SUVs. The road construction. And I really don't know whether sometimes we enjoy mediocrity as a country. Especially, sorry, but this is not going to sit well. But especially at the government level, every year I see road maintenance, the same area, the same spot every single year. And I'll give you an example. If you go to Right Choice, to Gamtel, Buford Gamtel, that Right Choice, every year they maintenance. And I was like, these potholes, if the government spend reasonable amount of money to make that road, to maintenance, not even to construct a new road, but to maintenance and make it well, we will not need to be maintaining that road every single year.
Yeah.
If you look at the Manjai road around the police station, every year the National Road Authority will also maintenance that area. Why? And it's a very substandard maintenance, but the public money is being spent on it. We cannot afford to be maintaining every now and then. The same. If I have a mobile that keeps giving me problem, there are two things. Now I dispose that mobile,
Buy a new one.
right, and buy a new one that will give me less of a trouble.
Yeah.
Then me spending money every now and then fixing that mobile phone when I can actually use that money to buy a new phone or a new product that can sustain me for a very long time. But it seems like people seem to be enjoying this type of small petty procurement issues that we are also oversighting. And but we are not oversighting it as civil service. We are looking. The problem is we are equally overwhelmed with a lot of accountability and we cannot do it at all.
Yeah.
We can't. We can only do what we can to get results. What we cannot do because we cannot take responsibilities and become too inefficient. We don't have the resources. We wish we do, but we can only handle what we can. But we have good journalists like you, Dabo. You are not a journalist, but a very good, so like I can call you a journalist, can't I?
Yes, absolutely. Now I'm in the fray too, so
Yeah,
I guess
you've been in this space for a
yes.
very long time. You've been doing debates, political debates with Back and Fight, like you mentioned, and IVLP, community development work. All of these are not new to you, but we have those folk, Mustafa Kedabo, and some small younger journalists that are coming up doing the work. But all of us could not actually finish. We cannot exhaust what is happening.
So, Mark, so to chart a way forward, it's been absolutely incredible. Thank you for all of your time and all of your contributions to this dialogue. I've learned a lot. But to chart a way forward, what would you say are critical reform areas that civil society should focus on towards, as you do, advocacy, towards conversing, towards community mobilization for accountability in the Gambia? What are areas that people should really be interested in and invested in? Like you said, journalists and the media would continue to do their bit, right? But also, whatever the journalists do it cannot be anything comparable to the impact that if we have a collective in terms of civil society organizations, in terms of the mass number of communities coming together to say that, hey, enough is enough. We need to change these things. We need to adjust these things. We need to put attention in some of these areas. What are some of the reforms that you think people should really look at, both at community level, through civil society, but also through government level?
That's a interesting question, but let me just conclude on the budget side and then respond to these issues. The issue of fiscal discipline is something else that we need to look at. In this 2026 executive budget proposal, there is a proposed $1 billion on consultancy fees only. $1 billion that will be paid on government consultancies, some of which in a project 100 million is being paid for consultancies, or 200 million, 300 million, most of which are donor funded project. And it baffles me. And this all goes to procurement, right? How is this possible? You look at, we did talk about the Meet the People store. We did talk about the vehicle expenditure and travels. If you put all of these expenditures together between 2020 and if we exhaust everything by 2026, all together, it should be about 8.4 billion or 8.6 billion dollars.
It's crazy.
On non-essential expenditure. And mind you, we are still looking for money to build the Banjul Bara Road, which is only costing us $500. This would be about over 23 or 24%. This 8.6 billion will be about 24% of the money needed to build the Banjul Bara Road that we have been trying for since God knows when this country was established. You still have to struggle through that unorganized ferry services. So these are the realities that we need to wake up to. You understand? And this numbers that we're looking at when we see $428 million going into fuel, we are not stupid. We know it's election year 2026. The vehicles are already purchased, but they need to be fueled so that they can actually go to campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So this is to answer your question. This is what we need to do as a society. Let's look at this data, sit, reflect, and look at the details in this data, and look at what is going to happen, and make sense out of it. What we are doing is not to make the government look bad. What we are doing is to safeguard our limited resources that we have to get that lifestyle that Gambians deserve, to get the quality education, health that we deserve, to get recreational facilities that we deserve. You were in Seattle. If you want today, you go to downtown Seattle and then you have your recreation.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the downtown in Gambia? Where do I go? Is it Senegambia? Is it turntable? But this is what attracts investors. In Senegal, I can go to multiple places and I pay. At Gore Island, going to Gore Island, the ferry that we use at Gore Island is faster. From Dakar to Gore Island, it's faster than the Gambia ferry services ferry. And every single person is paying 500 CFR, which is about $50 or so, goes to the community of Gore. And they use that money to actually develop Gore, where there is no car that runs in Gore, because it's a small island. How can we create apart from going to crocodile? I want to go and have I should go see crocodile. People were attacking, but this is the issue, because we are not waking to this reality. Outside Gambia, there are different options. But these recreational facilities are not only limiting crimes; they are bringing in resources to the country, because you are not using this for free. You're paying. These don't want to go and have fun with crocodiles. They want to see something fun.
Yeah.
So we invest money into those. The Sunday beach that we do have, right? Can we have the same great view that you guys have in Seattle in one of the beaches? So people pay for it. Foreign visitors also pay, whether in foreign currency or in dollars. Can we even have like good parking slots? If you go to the airport, you pay $35. Sometimes I ask these people, are you guys serious? $35 is every day, and I will leave my car there for 1 week. And sometimes the ticketing system is not even to an extent that you will think whether this money is actually going to where it is supposed to go to. In Senegal, they digitalize it. You park certain amount of money. If certain amount of time you surpass it, you pay. So we need to be serious. Be serious as a country. Let's take care of the way you would take care of your house. You don't want your house to be dirty. You don't want insecurity in your house. You want good food in your house. The same thing, run your country even more than the way you want your house. Your country is safe and beautiful, right? Why do I have to go somewhere else for a vacation or something else? So to go back to your question about civil society work, right? We need to redefine. We need to do self-introspection as advocates and change our not change but improve our ways of advocacy. Right? There's good number of civil society doing fantastic job. I mean, and they are not especially at community level, doing wonderful work. They just need the resources and support for you to see their impact. We're just 1% of the organizations that are doing the work that we are doing, right? But to improve this governance space, we must have clean heart. We must see each other as partners. It's not a competition. Obviously, what I keep saying, I'm in fact encouraging competition within the civil society space, because competition in any sector increases value in what they are competing for. If there was no competition between Apple and Samsung, and Huawei and others. There will not be, you will not see people playing for iPhone 17. There's competition. So there has to be healthy competition as well within civil societies, but there has to be healthy competition within the political space for ideas and innovations. At the end of the day, it is the country that will benefit from it. But if we obviously we will differ in ideas. It happens. I don't agree with what others are doing. Most also don't agree with what we are doing. That's totally fine. But let it not get to so let's say to an extent where it becomes personal.
Yeah.
You understand? And we try as much as possible to refrain away from that, and we have kept distance away from it. Like I said, we always try to make sure that whatever we're doing is motivated by, I mean, it's influenced by standards, but not motivation and focus. Right? We should also not be crowd pleasers. Crowd pleasers will receive the likes, will receive the recognition on social media, but the impact is minimal. And doing civil society work, where you measure the impact of your work is the metric that I use to measure the impact of Gambia participate. When we put out something as the opposition attack us, especially on the constitution, you saw that, and then the polls, but also when we put out something as on the government attack us, right? So we are in the middle. The impact. We are not pleasing the government. We are not pleasing the opposition. But that does not stop us from working with the opposition. That doesn't stop us from working with the government, because we work with local councils that are chaired by oppositions. We work with government institutions, and this is the interesting thing. I remember when we signed an MOU with the Ministry of Finance. My board came to me. People were saying, "How much is Gambia benefiting from this?" Not knowing we are the one that we're putting money into that partnership. We have never received a single dime from government. But when we send also MOU with local councils and supported them, certain technical support, also with financial support, people don't talk about that. So we are not going to be doing the usual way of advocacy. It might not sit well with many people, but that's what got us to where we are, because we are not chasing for likes or the congratulations or what have you. We're chasing for standards and results. We set the results and we go after those results. You can say whatever you want, and we totally understand that, because we are all human beings. We have emotions. I don't have the time, right, to sit with thousands of people that disagree with us. It's only through this platform that we can talk. Some will get it, some will not get it. Most people don't like what you are doing, but some like what you are doing. That's nature. Not everyone believe in God. Not everyone believe in our prophet. Some dislike our prophet. Some generations even killed their prophets. It's normal. It's not something new, but we need to be focused to the mission and set our target results. And I think this is something that we need to work as a civil society. To just advance a little bit on this. When I travel around this continent and others, right? The healthy competition that I'm talking about is the same thing that we are doing. We are not. We're trying to be better than, or to be at the same level, or if not beyond the same level with other civil society organizations around the world. You understand? Because when you come and then present your product, you need to have a product as a civil society. Today, if you ask me what are the products of Gambia participate, I can tell you we have the Gambia Corruption Index. I can tell you that we have the National Budget Dashboard. I can tell you that we have Marble Election App. I can tell you that we have several other resources we have published. You need to have product. What is your product? Apart from community engagement and sensitization, which is very important, produce products. And make sure these products are standard.
Yes. Yeah, Marr, I just want to, on a final note, just say this before I let you go, is just the importance of consistency, one, but also the ability and the courage to believe in something and stand for it, right? And that's not something that we see a lot from where we come from, especially from young people, right? And I can safely say that I've seen that very close with you and folks like Bakari Fadi, that the road could be very isolating sometimes, because you're doing this and there's not a lot of people that when you start believe or even support you. And I think I can speak for you too when I say that, sometimes it becomes very lonely, but you know that there is something bigger than you. You know that something bigger and better is the cause for which you want to make a difference about, and it keeps you going. And so it's really humbling to see you this far and to establish a civil society that very soon will be a decade in existence and create value. Because what people don't realize is what you're creating is so valuable. The value is the most significant thing. Is you're making a difference. You're bringing awareness. You educating people about the importance of civic awareness and good governance and democracy and transparency. And despite all of the things, they don't sort of slow you down in spite of it, that you are who you are, right? And for that, I really wish to commend you and tell you, look, bro, like some of us are afar, but we're closely watching what you're doing. We're closely monitoring what value that your organization is adding to our political space. But also, you can also make a case to say that, in fact, when you made the recent polls, is the reason perhaps the outcome of that post is being referenced so much that even say Taliban Suda, when I listen to him says, the numbers don't lie, the numbers that were published, right? It speaks to how you are sort of championing the dialogue, around public engagement, political interactions in the Gambia. That is important, right? So I really encourage you and your team to keep it up, keep leading these conversations. The challenges are going to come, the criticisms are always going to come. And one thing I really admire about you is you just have this thick skin. I see Sabalis throwing tantrums at you. I see a lot of people, accuse your organization of being funded by certain political segments of our society. But anybody who know, those are not truths. They are just cheap political statements to discredit the important work that you're doing. If they're out of government, they say Marr is the most credible person. If you write things about their parties, they say Marr is the most serious. Marr and Gambia participant are the most serious. If you say anything contrary to what they stand for, then Marr becomes the problem. But it tells you the double standardness of our community. So from one brother to another, I want to tell you, congratulations. I'm super proud of you and the work that you're doing in the Gambia.
No, thank you. I think you were the second person that brought up this issue. Earlier on, I did said I control what I see on social media. I think if you don't have anything good to say and in debating ideas, and so much negativity on your feed, I just put you aside because this work requires a sound mental health, right? You need to be mentally strong so you can focus. So distractions are what we put aside. I actually don't see those. You were the second person. I received a call. Someone told me, "Oh, did you see this?" Someone accused me. I said, "I actually don't see it. I'm not even interested in seeing it," because we have a mission, right? It's okay for people to do dirty laundry because that's what some are known for, but we built something else, right? And that is what we are focusing to provide services to impact the lives, right? We are not our religion, like I said, the values and the religion that we are taught, we are not trained to attack and insult. That's a very childish and foolish stuff for people to do, especially if they have a family. So those are some of the distractions, like I said, that we put aside and focus on our mission. And what I will tell to civil society and everyone doing this work, it's not every battle that you can fight.
Yes.
Even though sometimes before I'm someone else that fight for my right, for like stand up and do everything. Sometimes even if you are right and you own your right, even if people owe you and you know you own your right, prioritize the most important things that you are fighting for. Is it petty stuffs or bigger stuff that have a bigger life impact on you, your community, and the most vulnerable? So you choose your battle, and that's what I do, right? Small battles that have no significance, right? You put it aside and you focus on the bigger ones because um, when you get into this battle, we are all men, just like any other woman. Any fight you can fight it, as weak as you are, as in physically, mentally, you are emotionally, you are strong, and you can fight for yourself. But that is not what you need. Sometimes you just put the most important thing, you prioritize those, and then you fight for those. That's what you wake up early in the morning, not to be insulting, because the moment Ibrahim today, if I sit with you and we have this exchange on social media, the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning, you would check what is Marr saying, or
Yeah.
who are those. So you're not only looking at Marr, but you're looking at the close associates of Marr. So you're extending your smaller problem to a bigger problem. Now you are disliking those in Marr's circle that are saying bad stuff about Ibrahim. When you could actually focus on something positive,
Mhm.
you understand. So in my life, obviously we have our weaknesses, but growing up, I'm still young, but I like to be perceived as an old person. I'm still on the 35. Um, so I shape my mental health. I shape my mind, right, and focus on something, and that's what helped us to, and my team as well. That's what has been helping us to be focused and getting results. If you come up with something else that is worth of debating, then we can debate. But all of those foolish and childish stuff is not something else that we're gonna get into. So, and that's the work, right? Our prophets, we are not standing up for the truth without any opposition.
Yes.
It happens, right? Whoever stands for the truth, whoever is looking for the truth, the enablers and those that have or should I say, attached interest in who they are enabling, they're obviously going to go against the one who is standing for the truth, because that's what the rabbis did to Jesus Christ. That's what the Quraysh people did to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what the kingmakers of Moses, of Pharaoh, did to Moses. The jealousy that also made brothers of Yusuf to throw in the world. So these things are going to happen as far as you are making progress, as far as you are getting results, and you are exposing something else that if they lose, is going to be the end of their career, because they have no other alternative of alternative career. They haven't built anything for themselves. You understand? So these things are totally understandable. Our religion has taught this to us, and our religion also taught us to be focused. The values that have been instilled in us, taught us to be focused. So this is an advice for everyone doing this work. Forget about these petty issues and focus on the most important, because you cannot do this without those things coming on you.
Oh, you've all heard that wonderful advice. It's very salient from Ma. Ma, once again, thank you so much. I really had a wonderful time chatting with you. And thank you for taking about 2 hours of your time from a very busy schedule in Nigeria, where you are right now, for a program that you are attending to talk to me. You're always open whenever I reach out to you. You never waste time. You're either ready immediately to have a conversation, and you tell me a time that you're available, and you always hop on. And like I always say, like for some of us, it's not about, it's not even about the clicks. Those things, there are bigger things that we're living for. There are bigger things that preoccupies us when we go to bed at night than just what other people think about us or how we carry ourselves. Don't get me wrong; those things are important, but it's just uh, alleviating our people out of poverty and suffering. For
Mhm.
me, that's the most important thing that I think about. And so, if that means you want to align me or attach certain names or put me in some box, that's fine. I can live with that. But I cannot live with myself knowing fully well I have responsibility as a human being to my community, to my country, and to my continent, and also to the world, to add my voice to the conversation of how we can end suffering of our people. I'll always lead the charge. So again, thank you so much, Mark, for talking to me.
Thank you once again for always reaching out. I appreciate this really.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Bye bye.
Bye.